The wedding planner didn't look at me when she said it, which somehow made it worse. She kept her eyes on the seating chart and said, "If you want this wedding to meet expectations, you should sell the beach house." For a moment, I thought I misheard her. Then my sister nodded, like it was the most reasonable suggestion in the world. I remember staring at the ocean through the glass wall behind them, wondering how something I built could suddenly become a disposable asset in someone else's plan. My name is Carter Whitfield. I bought that beach house in Santa Barbara, California in 2019, after years of working 80-hour weeks in private equity. It wasn't just a property. It was the first thing I ever owned that felt like mine. My sister, Sloan Whitfield, had always lived differently. She married well, socialized well, and somehow always landed softly. I respected that, even admired it sometimes. But that afternoon, sitting across from her wedding planner, Margot Thornton, I realized admiration had quietly turned into something else. Margot didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Her calm confidence carried the weight of someone used to being obeyed. She slid a folder toward me, filled with venue upgrades, designer installations, imported florals. The total cost was highlighted in soft gold. Sloan leaned forward and said, "It's not forever, Carter." Her tone was gentle, but there was an edge underneath. "You can always buy another place." I didn't respond immediately, because what I wanted to say wasn't something you say at a wedding planning table. What I wanted to say was that I had already given enough. What I wanted to say was that I had paid for her education, helped her through 2 failed startups, and never once asked for anything back. But instead, I said the house isn't on the table. Margot finally looked at me then. Not angry, not surprised, just calculating. She said, "Then we'll have to adjust expectations." And that was the moment everything shifted, because it wasn't just about a house anymore. It was about control. Over the next week, things changed in subtle ways. I wasn't copied on emails anymore. Decisions were made without me. Budgets expanded without explanation. Sloan stopped calling as often. When she did, her tone was shorter, more transactional. I told myself it was stress. Weddings do that. But then I received an email from a law firm in Los Angeles. Attached was a draft agreement. It referenced a family asset liquidation plan. My beach house was listed as the primary funding source. I read the document twice, then a third time, each time hoping I had misunderstood something. I hadn't. That night, I drove to the beach house alone. The Pacific was calm, almost indifferent. I walked through each room slowly, remembering why I bought it. Not for status, not for investment, but because it was the only place I ever felt quiet. Before we go further, pause for a second. If you were in Carter's position, would you see this as a misunderstanding or a line that had already been crossed? I called Sloan the next morning. She didn't answer, so I drove to her house in Montecito. When she opened the door, she looked surprised to see me. Not relieved, not curious, just surprised. I held up the document and asked, "Did you approve this?" She hesitated, just long enough to answer my question without speaking. Then she said, "It's just a draft." I stepped inside without waiting to be invited. The house smelled like fresh flowers and expensive candles. I said, "A draft doesn't happen without intent." She crossed her arms. "Carter, you're overreacting." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Am I?" Margot appeared from the hallway, perfectly composed, like she had been expecting this moment. She said, "We're trying to create something extraordinary here." I turned to her and said, "At my expense." She didn't deny it. That was what made it real. Sloan stepped between us. "You've always been the one with resources." There it was. Not said as an accusation. Not said as gratitude. Just stated like a fact that justified everything else. I realized then that this wasn't about a wedding. It was about a pattern. And patterns don't break unless someone decides to break them. So I did something I hadn't done before. I said, "I'm stepping out." Sloan frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means I'm not funding this anymore." Silence filled the room. Margot spoke first. "Then the event will need to be significantly reduced." I nodded. "That sounds appropriate." Sloan's expression shifted from confusion to something sharper. "You're punishing me." I shook my head. "No, I'm finally drawing a boundary." She looked at me like she didn't recognize me. Maybe she didn't. The following weeks were tense. The wedding plans changed. Smaller venue, fewer guests, less spectacle. I stayed out of it completely. On the day of the wedding, I arrived quietly. No grand entrance, no special role. Sloane looked different, not unhappy, but not as certain as she used to be. During the reception, she approached me. She said, "I didn't think you'd actually follow through." I said, "Neither did I." She looked out at the ocean and said, "It's still beautiful." I knew she wasn't just talking about the view. Second pause here. Be honest. Do you think Carter did the right thing by stepping back? Or should he have supported his sister no matter what? After the wedding, things didn't magically fix themselves. We spoke less. There was distance. Real distance. But there was also something new. Clarity. Months later, Sloane invited me to dinner. No planner. No agenda. Just the two of us. She said, "I think I forgot where the line was." I didn't respond immediately. Then I said, "So did I." And that was enough. Not a perfect resolution. Not a dramatic reconciliation. Just honest. The beach house is still mine. Still quiet. Still exactly what I needed it to be. But now it means something different. Not just success, but a boundary I finally chose to protect.